My name is Chris Robbins, and it's my privilege today to open the Word of God with you. Actually, during the worship, all the input we've had, thank you for everybody that shared. You've all read my notes. Everything you've brought today is in here. If you have a Bible with you, turn to Mark chapter 5, and we're going to read from verses 21 to 43. If you haven't a Bible with you and you've got an iPad, use that. If you've got a tablet, use that. If not, it'll come on the screen. I always preach from the ESV. If you have a different version, either follow on the screen or read your version. But it's Mark chapter 5, 21 to 43. There we go. And when Jesus had crossed again the boat to the other side, a great crowd gathered about him, and he was beside the sea. Then came one of the rulers of the synagogue, Jairus by name, and seeing him, he fell at Jesus' feet and implored him earnestly, saying, "My little daughter is at the point of death. Come and lay your hands on her." Do you know, I get emotional reading this. "Come and lay your hands on her, so that she may be made well and live." And he went with him. And a great crowd followed him and thronged about him. And there was a woman who had a discharge of blood for 12 years, and who had suffered much under many physicians, and had spent all that she had had, and was no better, but rather she grew worse. And she had heard reports about Jesus, and came up behind him in the crowd and touched his garment. For she said, "If I touch even his garments, I will be made well." And immediately the flow of blood dried up, and she felt in her body that she was healed of her disease. And Jesus, perceiving in himself that power had gone out of him, immediately turned about in the crowd and said, "Who touched my garments?" And his disciples said to him, "You see the crowd pressing around you, and yet you say, 'Who touched me?'" And he looked around to see who had done it. But the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came in fear and trembling and fell down before him, and told him the whole truth. And he said to her, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your disease." Now, while he was speaking, there came from the ruler's house some who had said, "Your daughter's dead. Why trouble the teacher any further?" But overhearing what they said, Jesus said to the ruler of the synagogue, "Do not fear, only believe." And he allowed no one to follow him except Peter and James and John, the brother of James. And they came to the house of the ruler of the synagogue, and Jesus saw a commotion, people weeping and wailing loudly. And when he had entered, he said to them, "Why are you making this commotion and weeping? The child is not dead, but sleeping." And they laughed at him. But he put them all outside and took the child's father and mother and those who were with him and went in where the child was. And taking her by the hand, he said to her, "Talitha cumi," which means, "Little girl, I say to you, arise." And immediately the girl got up and began walking, for she was 12 years of age. And they were immediately overcome with amazement. And he strictly charged them that no one should know this. And he told them, "Give her something to eat." If we were in Britain, he'd say, "Let's put the kettle on and make a brew up." Give her something to eat. What an amazing story. Now, every time I preach, I come in and give Malcolm, or whoever's on the projection screen, the verses. And Malcolm always says, "What's your title? What's your title for the webpage?" Well, choice of 3. He always says, "I don't like choices. Just tell me the title." Well, it could be "The Story of Two Touches." It could be "Faith That Defies Defeat." Or "The Touch That Stopped God." I like that one. The touch that stopped God. Following on from last week, Last week we did the early part of chapter 5. If you were here, you may remember I called it the East Side story. They went in a boat on the east side of the Sea of Galilee, and they met the man called Legion, and he was a very troubled man. He was violent. Chains wouldn't hold him, shackles wouldn't hold him, and he came down and implored Jesus to help him. And all the demons inside this man went into 2,000 pigs. You remember I described how the pigs were coming down the cliffside, 2,000 pigs. And I was explaining what a scene that would have been, and I hope it didn't put you off your lunch too much, especially if you're having a leg of pork or something. But now we read that Jesus and the disciples have come back to the west side of the lake, or the sea. This time an uneventful crossing. There was no wind, there was no storm building up, but he comes back and meets a huge crowd, a great crowd of people, and a ruler of the synagogue cuts through the crowd and comes straight to Jesus. Now we must remember that the ruler of the synagogue would have been quite a well-known and important man in his time. He would have been known kind of like the local president, the head of the local Jewish worshipping community. We even know this man's name. We're told his name, Jairus. And instead of speaking with his normal, official, authoritative capacity, this man is now desperate. Desperate. And he falls on his knees before Jesus, pleading with Jesus for his daughter. And his daughter probably would have been known by many because he was such a well-known man. I mean, just think of the President of the US, his daughters would be known by many, the leader of this country, his or her family would be known. And this man's daughter would be known. And Jairus falls on his knees before Jesus and says, "My little daughter, Jesus, my little daughter's dying. She's at death's door." Desperate words for a parent to say. She's thinking fast. This terrible plight of a parent unable to do anything to assist or to help his child. And in verse 24 we read that Jesus went with him. 4 words. Jesus went with him. What an amazing 4 words to come across. A man in such a desperate state. And he implores Jesus, "Jesus, come with me." And Jesus, "I'm coming with you." Such a comfort, such a relief, Jesus going with him. You see, in our greatest fear, in our desperate state, Jesus comes with us. This is an example of relationship, of comfort, of relief. Jesus accompanies this lonely parent to his sick child. I suspect Jairus would have been leading the way at a fast pace. He would not have been dilly-daddling. Here to come, Jesus, we're going to go fast. And the crowd followed. The crowd is big, the disciples are there, and Jairus is leading the way, and something happens. There is an interruption. "Oh no, Jesus, please don't be interrupted. Please don't. No, Jesus, focus. We're going to my daughter. She's dying. Don't allow anything to interrupt you. I'm desperate. My little girl, my little child, she's dying. Don't stop." But something is about to happen. And what is about to happen is the touch that stops God. There's a woman. We don't even know her name. Even today, 2,000 years on from when we don't know her name. We just know her as a woman with a gynecological problem. That's who she is. And she's had this problem for 12 years. Actually, the same age as Jairus' daughter. 12 years. This woman's desperation is quieter than Jairus', but no less urgent. She'd heard reports about Jesus. She'd heard reports about about Jesus, not the church, not a latest conference, not the latest this or that. No, she's heard reports about Jesus. We have to be mindful to what we listen to. Even today, we have to be very careful what we listen to, what we read, what we look at. Sometimes you're watching a film and you think, I don't think this is very suitable. Even 15 films of the 15 category. You look at it and you look at the scale and I say to each other, this isn't very suitable for a 15. I'm 66 and I think I'm not old enough to watch this. Awful. We have to be very careful. What we listen to, what we look at, and what we read. Now, this woman had faith. Her faith was in trusting Jesus. This woman having a flow of blood. This woman having suffered under many doctors. This woman having spent all her money, all her resources had gone. This woman who had not been improving. In fact, she got worse. This is a story of someone who's reached her limit. She's got to the end of her strength. For 12 years, she's had this problem. And she says to herself, I can't go on. As Jenny was saying, I can't go on anymore. Jesus, I can't go on. 12 years of shame and embarrassment, living isolated, out of the community. She'd done everything she could, been to every doctor, every physician that her money would allow. In the prayer meeting this week, we were talking about the widow in 2 Kings chapter 4, where the woman there, she owed money. And her children were going to be taken away from her and sold into slavery. And all she had was 1 jar of oil. And the prophet Elisha said, go next door and get some more jars and we're going to get some more oil. And she did, and you know the story. There was so much oil that day she was able to sell it, pay off her debts. But this woman is the same. This woman's prospect here was no better than the dying girl in Jairus' house. Absolutely hopeless. Now, according to the law, a woman was unclean for 7 days after her monthly period. But if she had a further problem, then she remained unclean until it healed. She wasn't allowed into the synagogue, she wasn't allowed to come to the community, she wasn't allowed to touch anybody, and nobody was allowed to touch her. If she touched anybody, it was deemed that they became unclean as well. She was banished from the community until purification came. It's almost like wherever she went, it was stay away from me, you get away from me. You're not welcome, you're dirty. A bit like the leper in the beginning of Mark's Gospel in chapter 1. The leper had to be outside the city. The lepers were put out. Don't come near me. When I was in Mexico, I used to teach English to business people, and one of my clients was a skin doctor. And he had a clinic in the wealthy part of the town, but he also had a clinic in the poorer part of the city, in the state hospital. And sometimes he'd say, oh, Chris, can I have my class, instead of having it in my house or my smart clinic, can we have it at the public hospital after my sessions there? So I said, yeah, sure. So I drove there. And it was quite a poor area, and pretty rough area, actually. And I went into this place, and I thought, you ever been to a place where you just don't want to touch anything? I mean, there was loads of people sitting there on filthy chairs, and they had skin problems and bandages with, I mean, you thought, I don't want to touch anything. And I sat there and I thought, I want to go to the loo. Oh no. But anyway, so then he called me in and, we sat down and we did our verbs and everything. And I thought, and you looked in the bin with all these swabs and everything. Oh, gosh. I mean, I know that woman, But how many times did this woman think, as soon as I am healed, I'll be able to do this. As soon as I get over this problem, I'll be able to live a normal life again. I'll be able to see my friends again. I'll be able to go to the synagogue again. As soon as. How many times? As soon as. One day. Will that ever day come? but she had heard reports about Jesus. And on this day, in this story, she moves unnoticed in the crowd, and she reaches out to touch Jesus' garment. And as this woman reached out, in effect, she was making Jesus unclean because she was touching him. Even jostling in the crowd, if the crowd knew her condition, there would have been an uproar. There'd have been a real uproar. You stay away from me. She stretched out. She reached out in desperation with a hunger and longing to be healed, to have her life changed. Her desperation was just a touch, just the edge of his garment, just the edge of his coat, pushing, shoving, getting near enough just to reach out, yes. Just touched him, and something changed. She knew something had changed. You see, when we encounter Jesus, something changes. Something changes. When he encounters us, when we encounter him, something changes. I remember the day I was saved down in Sevenoaks. We used to meet in the back of a pub in Sevenoaks High Street. Awful hall, filthy, from discos and things going on the previous night. It was the back of a pub, so they used to rent it out for kind of parties and things. We had two crews. One crew would go in the morning and sweep the floors, but in the end the loos were so bad they used to just board them up. They were so awful. That's what it was like. And there was a visiting evangelist, and he said, there's two men in this building, in this room today, that need to stand up and accept Jesus. And I looked around and I thought, everybody's shrunk. I thought, oh, goodness, I'm still up. And as I was standing there, I just felt a fire burning through me. The first person that came up and spoke to me was Roger By. And he said, oh, how are you? I said, I'm so hot. He said, yeah, that's good. I thought, what do you mean that's good? I'm so hot. And there was a stage area there, and he said, well, let's go over by the stage and just pray. And I was still by the stage. There was a nail sticking out the stage, and it ripped the back of my trousers. I thought, what's going on here? But I knew something had changed. When I went home at lunchtime, I knew I was different. I just knew I had encountered, there was a change. 12 years of shame and frustration for this lady were resolved in a momentary touch of Jesus. And at the same time, Jesus knows within himself that healing power had gone out of him. But you see, this woman was acting in faith before she fully understands what had happened. She just reached out and touched his garment. For this woman to be in public and to touch Jesus, she would be expecting a serious reprimand. But was there a reprimand? Not at all. To the contrary. Without realizing it, she was becoming the model of faith for Jairus to see. Jesus stopped, turned around, and said, who touched my garments? Jesus insists she identifies herself. Disciples raise their arms. What do you mean, Jesus? There's more to say. Who didn't touch you? There's so many people around you. What do you mean, who touched you? Look at the people. The woman wanted something. She wanted a cure. She wanted a healing. She wanted an end to her suffering. She wanted something. Jesus wanted to meet someone. He wanted to talk to her. He said, who touched me? Who touched me? Don't disappear in the crowd. No, who touched me? Jesus wants to have a relationship. He wanted to speak with her. He wanted to encounter her. He wanted her to encounter him. He stopped. Who touched me? He wanted someone. She wanted something. You see, Jesus doesn't want churchgoers. People doesn't want church. Jesus doesn't want church attenders. Oh, which church do you go to? That's very nice. What's that about? Which church do you go? He doesn't want church attenders. He wants people who encounter him. We encountered Jesus this morning when we were worshiping. There was an encountering. That's what he wants. He wants us to be made whole. He wants us to become alive with him. He wants us no longer dead in our trespasses and sin. He wants us to know that we're forgiven. We've been made alive. He wants us to think differently. And when we've encountered Jesus, we think differently. We act differently to each other, to our communities, to our neighbours, to ourselves, even to ourselves. The way we look at ourselves becomes different when you encounter Jesus. Somebody once said to me years ago, he said, Chris, as a Christian man, you've nothing to prove, you've nothing to hide, and you've nothing to fear. You are Jesus. Jesus said to Jairus, come on, I'll come with you. Jesus says to this woman, daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your disease. What the woman hears, she knows she's already received. She knows she's been healed. It's almost like his words interpret her experience. I just touch his garment and I know I'm healed. Jesus' deeds and Jesus' words are one. What he says and does is one. She now has identity. He says, daughter. What a lovely expression. Not woman, but no, daughter. It shows a loving father, a caring father, a living father. It brings dignity. This woman has been suffering in this terrible way for 12 years, and in a second, she's given dignity. Daughter, you may well. Relationship. This time she's speaking with Jesus face to face. Face to face. This is the grace of God. She speaks with Jesus face to face. Shame is now gone. Disgrace is now gone. Before, she had to approach Jesus from behind. She couldn't go and stand in front of him. Now here she is standing in front of her Lord, eye to eye, conversation. Fully alive and free to go in peace. Did she get religion? No. Did she get religious? No. She met with Jesus. That's it. She met with Jesus. And he changed her life completely. When we meet with Jesus, he changes our lives completely. But the drama now intensifies in this story. While Jesus is spending time talking to this woman, some of the attendants from the ruler of the synagogue, Jairus' house, comes up to announce terrible, terrible news. Jairus, I'm sorry to say, but your daughter's dead. You're too late. And the others say, well, Jesus, we don't want to waste your time now. All hope now has gone. The girl's dead. All hope disappeared. Imagine how that man felt. Hope deferred. Hope gone. Just gone. Sorry, your daughter's dead. Forget the teacher. He doesn't have to come anymore. Leave it. Tragic, devastating news. While one daughter was made new, a little girl, another daughter, was seemingly dead. That's the story. It seemed that the interruption of this woman has cost the life of Jairus' daughter. All hope now lost. Don't bother Jesus to continue. Forget it. Don't waste your time. And overhearing what they said, Jesus said to Jairus just 5 words. Do not fear, only believe. Just 5 words. Do not fear, only believe. Now, I love watching movies, especially the action-packed movies, and when there's stuff going on. And often you see them say there's a dreadful situation, and they say it's going to be all right. It's going to be all right, and you're thinking, no, it's not. That's not going to be right at all. No. Oh, it's going to be all right. No, I know that's the reaction of we would say that to each other. It's going to be all right. It's going to be all right. I hope it is. No, but when Jesus says, "Do not fear, just believe," things are going to be different. If Jesus has said to you, "Do not fear, only believe," on something that we were hearing from Nonny this morning, that hope deferred. If Jesus has said to you, "Do not fear, only believe," well, only believe. And on the arrival at Jairus' house, there's a real commotion going on outside. Weeping and wailing, loudly, noisy, dramatic. Now, in those days, and I think even now, they had professional or hired mourners that come in. Ladies that come in and probably do a lot of weeping and wailing publicly. It's probably, I don't know, Caroline, whether in your part of the world they do that as well. And they gather to somebody that's died and they put this scene on. And Jesus says to everybody, the child is just sleeping. But these professional mourners, I mean, they know the difference between a sleeping child or a child in a coma to a child that's dead. They would know the difference. They've seen it many times. They're professionals. They go to everybody's house that's died. And make this racket outside. They know the difference. So they mock Jesus. Jesus, forget it, Jesus. This girl's dead. I'll tell you about it. She's dead. Charles Spurgeon, the preacher man, said he referred to these people as mimicking sorrow. He said these weepers and wailers were mimicking sorrow outside Jairus' house. And Jesus, what does he do? He clears them away. Anything false, get out of here. A bit like clearing outside the temple in Matthew chapter 21. Get out of here. You're not part of this. Get away. And that's what Jesus does. And you think, oh, Jesus, meek and mild. No, you get out of here. You're not welcome. And only Jesus and the parents of the child, and Peter, James, and John, go in to this child. Just as the woman who was bleeding, there was touch and words. Jesus takes the girl's motionless hand and speaks to her in her own language and says, little girl, I say to you, arise. And as Peter, I think, wrote Mark, as in Mark's Gospel, he uses the word immediately. And immediately, the girl comes alive. Immediately. What an amazing miracle. And she arose and she began as a 12-year-old to walk around the room. Immediately healed. Not, oh, no. She just sprang up. And Jesus did not want this miracle known at this time. There's a bit another scripture. And I was thinking to myself, why doesn't he want this known? Surely this would have been great news for everybody. But then I came across Isaiah 42, where it says, the prophet says, he will not cry aloud, or lift up his voice, or make it heard in the street. I thought, wow. But Jesus, wouldn't you want everybody to know this? Is it something miraculous? Wouldn't you want everybody to know this? But at the time, Jesus said, no, I don't want everybody to know this. Both Jairus and the woman had one thing in common. Both are victims of a desperate circumstances and had no hope. This woman had no hope. Jairus, when he's told his daughter had died, had no hope apart from Jesus. Jairus, a man of high profile and power, the woman with nothing. Even her gender was against her in those days. Nameless, her uncleanliness, her shame. But none of these things stopped her from reaching out to Jesus. And this woman comes, and to this woman come the words, "Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace." And when Jesus says to Jairus, "Don't be afraid, just believe." How could he understand this command? He's been told his daughter's dead. The attendant said so. The mourners are waiting outside his house. But the answer is, he must have the kind of faith that this woman had. This woman was rich, desperate to touch Jesus. Circumstances must not limit our faith. Now, we've been singing that today. We've been saying it today. Circumstances do not limit our faith. The guy that wrote the song, I didn't know about that, was bedridden. Great is thy faithfulness. Circumstances must never limit our faith. And when Jesus commands us to trust him, even circumstances that seem impossible to us, he says, do not fear, just believe. This kind of fear has no limits, not even the raising of a dead child. That's it. How do we respond to such a word like this? How do we respond to such a morning like this? Great worship, prophetic words, and everything, all the prophetic words, they're all wrapped up in here. How do we respond to it? Oh, just go home and have a nice lunch. Or do we say, no, great is thy faithfulness, Lord. I mean, as I said last week, I do believe we're on the edge of something. I really believe that there's something going to be moving in this part of the country. I really believe it. This thing on the 8th of April in the little church in Penrith, I think it's going to be an amazing day. But don't wait for the day. I've been asked to be the governor of a local school, and I went to see the headmistress this week. It was a Christian lady, lovely lady. And I said to her, well, I don't know what I can bring. What can I bring to the school? Because I'm not a financier, I'm not a buildings man, I can cook. But you know, and I said, but I'm a Christian man, and I'd love, do you pray together as a team or in your office as staff? She said, well, no, not yet. So I said, well, I do believe that God's going to be moving, and I think he's going to start with children. I really believe that our children out there, they're mobilised aren't in there today, are they? Our children out there in the other main meetings, I think it's going to start there. Be ready for it, guys. Be ready for it. This train, I know we keep talking about this train, but this train is about to leave the station. And the kids are on it. This train is going to leave the station. I do believe there's something going to happen. And that will mean that when the supernatural, when the miraculous is here, it will need explaining. The gospel must follow. Otherwise, people just get marvelled in the miraculous. They've got to be marvelled with the miraculous, but that's a sign of the presence of God, the kingdom of God. The miraculous is just a sign. As much as we want it, as much as we want to see long-term healing, as much as we want to see all this, yes, of course we do. Pray for it fervently. But it's a sign of the kingdom of God. That's what it's all about, the kingdom of God, Jesus. This woman had heard reports about Jesus. She didn't hear reports about healings or about this, she heard reports about Jesus. We've got to make Jesus known, guys. And when the miraculous comes, we've got to be ready to say, no, this is the gospel. It's Jesus.